Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is Alan. Star Wars is a massive franchise that has been entertaining humanity for almost half a century. Over the years, fans have found all sorts of messages and hidden meanings woven into these stories, which are designed to make the viewers a better critical thinker. One of my favorite lessons in Star Wars is taught by the Jedi Order. It's a central tenet to their belief system, and that is that emotions can be dangerous and lead us to the dark side. Of course, the Jedi aren't really great at following their own rules, but it seems like Boba Fett, reborn in the Sarlacc pit, seems to grasp this concept very well. Despite facing a constant stream of villainous scum in the first few episodes of his show, Boba Fett has managed to not kill everyone he's faced. He's even converted some of his potential enemies into loyal followers. At the center of this former bounty hunter's success is this idea of using your brains instead of your blaster all the time. While a lot of the more chimp-like fans are upset by this perceived change in Boba Fett's character and view his newfound kindness as weakness, the reality is actually very different. Boba Fett can act the way he does because he's very secure about himself. Not only does he have Beskar wrapped around his body, he's a terrific warrior, and now he has some impressive backup as well. And so he extends his hand in friendship, not from a position of weakness, but from a position of power and strength. He does not need to preemptively strike out against enemies to prove that he is strong. He is completely secure in who he is. Being rational and balanced is a central theme in Star Wars. It's something that George Lucas has talked about since the original trilogy, and then reinforced a lot more in the prequels. At the time that film came out, our real world was in another period of strife. In between episode 1 and 2, 9/11 occurred, along with the plans to invade Iraq and Afghanistan. George Lucas's warning about the fragility of democracy was suddenly even more relevant in such turbulent times. It was during this period of time we began to see another message, a very special and specific message in the Clone Wars, and that was a message against foreign intervention. The Jedi's role in the Republic's government is quite confusing. On one hand, it is an entity that is heavily involved in Republic affairs. Jedi Knights commonly commandeer judicial department vessels and personnel for their own missions, and later on the Jedi would also serve as officers for the Grand Army of the Republic. On the other hand, the Jedi are not chosen by the people. They're not like voted into office. They're more or less chosen from the populace by the Jedi themselves. They have their own ruling council, which is chosen from within the Order. And if a Jedi commits a crime, like the Jedi Temple bombing suspect Ahsoka Tano, the judicial system cannot touch them unless the Jedi expel the member in question. So essentially, we have a group of individuals who are not elected, yet heavily rely on government resources and even funding. They have no accountability and no checks and balances. This is a clear problem. We have to understand why this happened. In the Old Republic period, the Sith used to be a huge threat, so big that they had their own rival empire. The Jedi at the time were the only ones capable of protecting the Republic from the Sith, and so they became the personification of all that is good and right in the galaxy, which of course isn't true. They were an organization of normal individuals who were very much as imperfect as everyone else was. And so the expectations for the Jedi were extremely high from the beginning, but these were just ordinary individuals with some superpowers that didn't necessarily help them be better at policing or statecrafting. Yet that is what the Jedi mostly were involved in, warrior diplomacy. This false sense of righteousness combined with increased unrest in the Outer Rim, combined with a lack of proper security organizations within the Republic, along with a lack of real training in foreign policy, meant that the Jedi would be sent on several different missions that were completely out of their comfort zone. We have to remember that individuals like Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi were considered top-tier operators. There were a lot of much less skillful Jedi running around creating a lot of problems, getting killed, and essentially destroying the name of their order. One skirmish that is extremely important in Star Wars history occurred on a planet known as Galidraan. The governor of the planet had been secretly sheltering a group of extremist Mandalorians known as the Death Watch. They were mortal enemies of another organization known as the True Mandalorians, which were headed by Jango Fett. The Death Watch were a bunch of psychopathic murdering bandits that were trying to return Mandalorians back to their glory days before the Crusades. The True Mandalorians were just a bunch of mercenaries who followed a code of honor when they did business. They naturally hated the Death Watch. The Death Watch would use the governor of Galidraan to hire the True Mandalorians to the planet to eliminate a so-called rebel group. Once the True Mandalorians engaged this rebel group, Death Watch notified the Jedi Council that these Mandalorians were murdering political activists. Instead of doing some recon and research, the Jedi immediately dispatch a squadron of Jedi Knights without thinking, led by Count Dooku. These Jedi managed to ambush the true Mandalorians, and before things could get de-escalated, fighting breaks out, and all of the true Mandalorians aside from Jango Fett are wiped out. The Jedi also lose quite a lot of their own fighters as well. This was ultimately a completely wasteful battle that never really needed to happen. The Jedi were far too bold and careless when they sent their quick reaction team to Galidraan. Dooku, who was shocked by the brutal nature of the combat on Galidraan, eventually would cite the battle as one of the main reasons why he would leave the Jedi Order. At the same time, this battle helped develop Dooku's respect for Jango Fett's fighting abilities and why he ultimately chose the warrior for the clone army template. At the same time, this event made Jango Fett hate the Jedi for the rest of his life. General Grievous was a cyborg warrior who led the droid army during the Clone Wars. He was one of the most feared warriors in the Separatist Alliance and was known to hunt down Jedi for sport. Yet this could have all been prevented had the Republic thought out their foreign policy a little better. You see, Grievous's people, the Kaleesh, came from wild space. Their planet had been under assault by a much more technologically advanced insectoid race known as the Yamri. The Yamri had overpopulated their own planet and had started conquering neighbor planets, including the one the Kaleesh lived on. The insectoids would quickly take over the Kaleesh's planet and enslave millions, and the Kaleesh would eventually begin fighting back. Grievous would rise as an important leader in the resistance movement and eventually drove the Yamri off their world and back to their original homeworld. The Kaleesh would then launch an offensive against the Yamri's home planet. Unfortunately for the Kaleesh, the Yamri had a much closer connection to the Republic, and they would appeal to the central government and ask them to intervene in this war. This would lead to the deployment of a Jedi strike force against the Kaleesh and also economic sanctions. General Grievous would almost die in a major shuttle accident that would force him to become a cyborg. This was actually all part of a secret Sith plan to turn General Grievous into one of their minions, but at the time the cyborg general believed that the Jedi were the ones who were responsible, which also leaves him full of hate for the Jedi for the rest of his life. The Clone Wars was a really confusing and tricky conflict because it ignited small civil wars on numerous planets. Many of these worlds, especially in the Outer Rim, wanted to leave the Republic because of financial and political reasons. Many of these worlds would openly invite a separatist occupying force onto their planets as a result. Some worlds like Onderon had an active resistance movement that would fight against the pro-separatist government. In these cases, the Republic and Jedi were placed in a very difficult situation. When a legitimate government voluntarily chooses to side with the CIS movement, the Republic had no recourse that would not seem like the actions of an overbearing tyrant and invader. The best course of action for the Republic is just to ignore such worlds and allow them to become a separatist member state. Instead, they should try to save planets that are actively being invaded by the CIS and actually resisting. But on Onderon, the Jedi have some links with the local rebels there, and what they're requesting from the Republic is not support and soldiers or vehicles. Instead, they just want some training in asymmetric warfare so that they could stand a better chance in destroying the CIS. The Republic and the Jedi reluctantly agree to launch a secretive foreign internal defense mission. They send a small team of Jedi and clone Captain Rex in plainclothes to advise the small movement. Very quickly, the Onderonians managed to pick up the new skills and tactics being taught to them, but little did the Jedi know they were also teaching a radical known as Saw Gerrera to be an even more efficient killer. After the Clone Wars finished, Saw Gerrera would continue fighting against the Empire as a resistance fighter. He would eventually harden emotionally and lose his way completely. By the outset of the Galactic Civil War, most Rebel Alliance factions distanced themselves away from Saw Gerrera, whose brutality was beginning to wane support for the rebels. Military intervention should only be used in a last case scenario, and you better have a lot of research before you actually engage troops on the battlefield, or else you'll have another Galidraan, you'll have another General Grievous situation, or you'll have another Saw Gerrera and create more enemies. Because ultimately, just because you think you're the good guy doesn't necessarily mean your military action is going to have good results if it's incompetent and not well planned. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that life is a movie and you are the protagonist.